So what if we wanted a function that would actually return a value back to the part of the program that's calling it? Well, we can do that using the return function. So let's make a demo called return demo. And what we want to do is we want to have a function that, or let's say that we want to make a program that does this. We're going to get num1 from user, get num2 from user, and then display, calculate the sum. And then display results. And maybe at the beginning of this, we might display header, display header, and then at the end, display goodbye. So, well, display header. Well, if this is the main part of my program, we saw that in the previous example. In fact, we saw in function demo 1. This is basically our display header method. So we can make a function called display header. And again, we have the function name. We have to have parentheses when we define a function or when we call a function. And so then with the display header, we're going to just print welcome to my addition program. In this program, you will provide two numbers and the program will display the results. So here we are in the main part of the program, and we want to display headers. So we've defined the function. As a reminder, just defining the function actually doesn't do anything. We have to call the function. So here, I'll just say display header. And now it's displaying the results. Maybe what we'll do is we'll add just a print to put an extra carriage return between it and the next thing that will show up. So we get the space here. But this works nicely. Now notice this. I've got this comment here, and it looks almost exactly like my function name. That's not by accident. By doing this, once I have the function there, I really don't need that comment anymore. The function name itself provides enough self-documentation, essentially, to make that work nicely. So I don't need the comment now. Now, let's see. But now what I want to do is I want to get a number. So the way I would write this function is I would say, maybe I would call it something like get number. And I would say maybe num is equal to I want it to be an int, and I'm going to input, please enter actually I want it to be a float, don't I? no reason I shouldn't be able to add decimal points. A number. So I've got that. And then the question is how, so I've got this function that does this. How do I get the value back? Well, we use something called a return statement. And so get number will output the value and return a number. So here I am, I called the function. And let's see if that works. Please enter a number. Okay, that appears to work. Now I need to get the second number. Well, how do I call that? But do I need to write a new function? Not really. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. So I could actually call this function again. And let's try that. Okay, I've got two numbers. Now I need to calculate the sum. So sum is equal to what plus what? Well, I need the values from these function calls. And, where do I get them? Well, I have to do this. I have to have some variables to store the results of that function call. So Python will actually call those functions, but it doesn't know what you want to do. So even though I have a return, unless I put a variable and an assignment operator next to this function call, whatever I get in num, I won't capture. And notice that this variable name does not need to match the variable name in the function. And this is this idea of scope. Within this function, num really only exists inside of this function. And so we do some calculations, we put it in a variable, or we do some code, we put it in a variable, and then we return this variable. We're not really returning this variable. We are returning the value of that variable, and then we are taking that and assigning it into this other variable down here. Well, why do we want to do that? Well, because down here, we want to add these two together. And if I use, we could do this, but if I did that, well, whatever I stored in the first one would get obliterated by the second one. So we have to provide different variable names. And that's why this does not have to match with the variable that you're assigning it into. So this function will do its work. It'll create this variable. It'll load it up with a value. And then it returns it and is the outcome of this function call. So this function call is going to return this floating point number. We're going to put it in this other variable here, first number. We're going to call the same function again. And then it's going to put the results of that one in the second number, which then allows us down here to do our calculation. And then we can say print sum of first number and second number is sum. And we're not going to turn this into a function yet, and we're not going to turn a calculate into a function yet. Because there's some other, we need parameters to do that, and we're going to go over that later. But we can do the goodbye message. So I can write a function and it's okay to make your function names kind of long. Again, it makes it much better documentation. And I'm just going to make this simple. And I might put a little comment up here so that we know that function definitions. And then this main is actually where execution begins. The line 16 is the first line where anything gets done, and then we can display the goodbye message. So let's see if this program works. I put a number, 12 by 2. The sum of 12 and 22 is 34. Thank you for using my program. So this is working pretty well. And we can, if we trace this through, we see we defined some functions. We displayed header, which is this, and we can see that portion of that up here. Then we came down to line 19, and we called getNumber. This returned num, which got assigned the first number. We called getNumber a second time. It got another number, displayed it in the second number, and then we added a 2 to get sum, and then we displayed the results, and then we displayed a goodbye message. So that's an example of a function that returns something. And so notice you can have functions that don't return anything. You know, they just do something. In this case, they display a message to the screen. Or you can have functions that get some value, and you know, sometimes this can be a calculation. In this case, it's an ask function. Basically, it's asking the user for something, and then it's going to return that. And you know, getNumber is not, it's kind of ambiguous actually. I think I prefer the name getNumber from user, so we know where we're getting the name from. And then if I change the name there, I've got to change it everywhere else. So by the way, that rename can actually be done more efficiently in if you want to rename something, you can rename symbol. Notice that there's an F2 key. If I hit F2, I can say getNumber from user, and it'll actually change it everywhere where it's referenced. So that's a useful thing if you ever want to change your names. And why do I want to do that? Well, you know, getNumber is a good name, but it's not really as precise as this. And when I do that, now I don't really need this comment, and I can kind of compress my code a little bit. So display header, first number is equal to getNumber from user, second number is getNumber from user, and then display goodbye message. Don't really need that comment anymore because now my function names are serving the purpose of showing of my comments and showing what's going on. So I can use my comments to lay out my program, but eventually I'm just going to turn those into function calls and kind of simplify my program. In fact, you know, eventually it'll just be a series of function calls like this, and it'll really compress up the program and make it easier to read. So that's how we return a value from a function. Thank you very much.